Just weigh in on the election outcome.
Yeah, Karen, thank you. Look, I think that the election results have been a little bit of a surprise for sure, but that's also partly because the exit polls, a couple of days before the counting actually happened, gave a very different picture, and so therefore that a little bit threw the market off. Having said that, I think it's important to keep in mind that this is the first time in the last 65 years that we've had the same government come back into power for the third consecutive time, and I think that's actually a very important thing to keep in mind. The second thing is that the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, has got 240 seats out of the 540 that are there totally in the parliament, and therefore they form a very strong core of this alliance, and therefore are reliant only on for a very small amount on external parties. I think, therefore, and given the fact that Prime Minister Modi is the leader of that alliance, and he will continue therefore as Prime Minister, frankly speaking, I don't think that you'll see a lot of change in India's economic policies, and there should be a lot of continuity in policy making going forward. And therefore, even for the renewable sector, in which, in fact, the Prime Minister himself was the primary driver of the whole sector, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of change. The government has been very supportive of our sector in the last several years, and my sense is that it will continue to be as supportive as it has been in the past, in the future as well. There are targets that the Prime Minister set for 2030, and my sense is that the government will definitely crack on and try to make sure that those targets are met. And that's also not just for political reasons, but also for very strong commercial reasons. India is a rapidly growing economy. As you know, our economic growth was 8.2% last financial year, which means that power demand is growing at 7 to 8% every year as well. Renewables is the cheapest way in which to deliver against that demand growth. Therefore, you'll see a lot.
Let me just jump in on this, because when you mentioned the renewable targets, there was a report from Moody's saying, look, there's not enough money that has been thrown towards achieving those goals. $385 billion is required to meet that target of 500 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030. Is money a problem when you look at your industry? Do you need deeper pockets to fuel or accelerate this transition?
No, absolutely. We do require a lot of capital, and it's not just for core renewable energy generation, but also for building our transmission infrastructure and for batteries and for last mile distribution as well. So we need about $400 to $500 billion to go into India's power sector over the next 6 to 7 years. Having said that, I think a lot depends upon the environment that the government creates. And, as we all know, if there are returns to be had, capital will follow. Our own experience has been that debt capital so far is not a problem in India. There is enough liquidity domestically, and there are lots of investors from the global markets as well, banks, etc., the bond markets that are willing to lend into India. And as far as equity capital is concerned, there's a tremendous interest from pension funds, institutional capital, private equity funds, along with now large Indian conglomerates also looking at the sector. So my sense is that we will not find a lack of capital, hampering growth in our sector.
So that said, India seems to be caught between a couple of crosswinds. Number one, the China Plus One policy that seems to be benefiting India. On the other hand, we are seeing these huge industrial policies that are pouring huge amounts of money into the United States and into Europe that the Indians have been criticizing even the past year. The energy minister for the government was pushing back, saying, look, this is presenting a huge conflict because we're not seeing enough renewable energy projects built out in emerging markets. What do you say to that and the line that Modi will have to walk here to ensure that he navigates these huge fiscal policies?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I do believe that India is going to be the alternative to China, and the government is already taking a number of steps in that direction. We are already seeing a lot of large manufacturing capacities get relocated to India, and that's terrific. On the other hand, you're also absolutely right when you say that in renewable energy, industrial policy globally is moving towards deglobalization. And everybody wants to create jobs and have the investments within their domestic areas. So we've seen that in the US with the IRA. We're seeing that in Europe with the new Green Deal and so on. And clearly, obviously, India is trying to push in the same direction, but we don't have the fiscal resources that the developed world has. And so I think there's a bit of unfairness that is creeping in as a result of some of these trade policies. But my sense is that, with so many bilateral and multilateral forums, there will be, talk and discussion and dialogue on a lot of these areas to figure out how trade policies can be more oriented towards friendshoring or nearshoring. And I think that is really where India can benefit. So, for example, we're setting up a pretty large solar manufacturing industrial base now. So we can actually export also from India into Europe and into the US. And I think that's really something that we all have to collectively take advantage of, to figure out how we can relocate some of these critical supply chains from China out into India and other countries.